So, going to be talking about this book today. There it is. First, We Make the Beast Beautiful by Sarah Wilson. This is a book about anxiety, or as she puts it, a new journey through anxiety. I just finished it today. I really wanted to talk about it because for the past month and a bit, I've been reading it sometimes way too slow. I just finished today and really wanted to talk about it because it's really helped me out in some aspects. So if you have anxiety and feel like reading a book, I'll tell you right off the bat that I really suggest this book. I have never read or been interested in self-help books ever, for many reasons, which I'm not going to go off into. But about a year ago or so, I saw this book at Costco, and I was like, oh, and it was around the time where I was really coming to terms with you have anxiety, John, realizing that, and I was like, oh, this book looks kind of cool, and I don't know, let's read a little bit about it. And then I was like, yeah, you know what, maybe I'll give it a shot. Maybe this is the time in my life where I was ready to read a self-help book. I decided, okay, I'll get that book and I'll give it a shot. And then I didn't read it until I didn't start it until a month and a half ago or so. So I just wasn't in the place where I was ready to take that on, and then I was, and I'm glad that I read it. So I guess the review portion I'll kind of go into real quick first as an overview, and then I'm going to get into some specifics about things that really helped me out. So that way it's almost just if you don't want to read this, then there's a couple things that I got from it, but obviously everyone's going to get something different out of this, with most books, but especially for something like this. There's a little over 300 pages, but they're small pages. The margins on this are huge. Let's get into reviewing the book. So again, it's a new journey through anxiety. So the language is very, very casual. It's not very academic. Every once in a while it gets a little academic because we're talking about things that we're talking about, either things that are formulaic or studies that have been done, statistics, every once in a while, but very rare. And the language is very casual and easy to read. And again, the margins being the way they are, that's obviously purposeful, and it does make reading it go by quicker, and it's just oh, this is nice. There's not really a lot of chapter 1, 2, 3, 4. There's kind of let me find a page where there's a couple. It's just not super traditional. So this section is called Do the Work. There's not a lot of section breaks like this. They're more you can see that starts off with a number. So that's 80, and then we have 81 over here, and it's kind of like that, where there's short sections in 82 and then 83. And for some people that's just, again, they're just little tiny breaks. And then there's sub-sections sometimes, sub-chapters, I don't know what to call them. Anyway, the format of the book makes it very easy to read. I don't know, just everything about it, it's very easy to read. Because the text is not overwhelming in its diction or in the layout, the font size, all that stuff. It just makes it easy to read. It's so easy, that's the first thing, I guess. I talked about the language being very casual. There's some profanity in here or whatever, but the way that Sarah Wilson kind of writes it is if she's writing an email to a friend. That's kind of how I would word it. It's this thing happened. You're trying to give advice to a friend, right? It's still you're trying to help somebody out. And I think that in a lot of ways, this is recounting, some of her personal experiences. And she does really well with saying hey, this is my thing. And very rarely does she preach. Very rarely does she say things that are blanket statements for everybody. Sometimes it gets into that territory a little bit. As an anxious person, you probably feel this, except the probably's not really there. And I'm yeah, this doesn't apply to me. This doesn't apply to me either, and that's fine, but just the fact that sometimes people say oh, you're anxious, that means this thing, or that means that thing, and it doesn't apply to everybody who is an anxious person or has anxiety issues or what have you. So there's not too much of that. I wrote a little short review on Instagram and Goodreads today, and one of the things was I didn't roll my eyes that much. It was very minimal. So I thought, one, going into a self-help book, I would be rolling my eyes all the time, being like, yeah, I already know this. Like, you don't have to tell me that. Or being like, geez, like, why would you word it that way? Or that's just a real cringy, like, story to tell. There was very, very few times. And if you know me at all, know that I have a very low tolerance for basicness. And I found that this was very tolerable. There's a few instances where I'm like, oh, really? Like, that's so basic. But very rare. Which, like I said, like I right off the bat, I said, like, if you feel like you're in a place to explore your anxiety or whatever and kind of get some ideas on what can help you out, and you're in a place where you want to read about anxiety, I definitely suggest this. It's very helpful. Very helpful. So it's already getting a positive review, but yeah, like there's some times where I caught myself rolling my eyes here and there. Again, it's very rare. And I have extremely low tolerance for that type of stuff. So yeah, it's good. It's really good. I'm trying to think of what else is an overview I can give you before I get into some specifics. I haven't read, here's the problem with reviewing this, I haven't read any other self-help books, ever. Never any other books about anxiety, like nothing. So I can't really compare them to other books, whereas if I was reading a book about dystopian fiction, I could compare it to this and that book and this one, and like other types of fiction or science fiction or fantasy or whatever realm it goes into, or contemporary fiction in general. But I have nothing to compare this to. All I know is that this was really good. I like the style of it. I would assume, I'm saying that it's refreshing because everything that I've thought about for self-help books is too formal, too academic, too preachy. It's just not, it never seemed, like when I've looked at them before and other people that I know have had them and I've flipped through them or whatever and been like, geez, like this looks like a textbook. Is what it feels like. But I don't know, this thing was very light and like fluffy in a good way, but it was jam-packed with a lot of information and stories and stuff. I didn't, to be honest, there's like 2 pages, or maybe a page and a half that I skipped. I looked at like these little subheadings and I was like, yeah, I don't need to know this. Or just by reading the subheading alone, I kind of knew what was going to happen, and I was anxious, so I didn't feel like I needed to read every single word right there in that instance. But I feel like, yeah, it's not like a textbook. It's like I said, like your friend giving you advice through an email is what it kind of comes off as. Personal experiences are in here. Thoughts on different studies, different books, different things that the author, that Sarah, had researched and things. But it doesn't come off as like, I researched this and now I'm telling you. I did all the months and months and months of this, and I'm just putting it in a little. I don't know. It's just a really great balance of like outside research and then cultivating your personal experiences and expressing that in a way where you are reaching a broad audience, but also there's some specifics that happen with her that are very specific to her. But then how she has interpreted that through the lens of anxiety has been able to like branch off into talking to generally people with anxiety as a whole, and a lot of these things make sense. Again, I don't know how to talk about this in a more broad sense anymore without getting into some specifics, but I would say right away, like, again, it's really worth the read. I'm glad that I read it. It did great things for me. But in saying that, you just have to be in the right place for it, right? Like, I could be like, this book's great, and then, if you're not in the right place for it, then I don't think any self-help book you're going to read is going to be good. If someone pushed this on, like, whatever. I mean, you shouldn't be bullied into reading anything you don't feel like reading in the first place. If you don't feel ready to read anything or any type of media, whatever that is, you're probably not going to have a good experience if someone's bullying you into it, right? I'm not saying, like, oh, if you read this and then you weren't into it, well, then I guess you just weren't, like, ready for it. That's not what I'm saying. Because maybe you're like, ready to read it, and you read it, and you're like, yeah, that didn't really do it for me. Fine, whatever, that's fine. I'm not going to accuse you of not being ready to take that journey, or whatever you want to say. But yeah, I've been exploring my own anxiety on my own for the past year and a bit, and especially the past 6 months, and just like it's just really ramping up where I've been yeah, exploring my own anxiety, looking at myself through that lens of anxiety, looking at the world through that lens very consciously now, at my personal history and experiences, and then how I want to move forward. That's kind of been what my what I've been. I don't know. Like I feel like so many things that I do, or so many negative things about myself, that are manifested are because or coming through me as an anxious person. So like it was really just something I've been doing on my own. I've been doing the work already, and for me, this was part of the work. And thankfully, it really helped me out. Like I was ready to research or listen, and hear some other ideas in this way. And again, it was presented beautifully, I thought, for someone who hates doing formal research of any kind, like me. So, yeah, again, if you're kind of ready just to explore the idea a little bit, I've already been in the thick of really analyzing myself and doing some work there. So it was perfect timing for me to pick that up and start doing it. That's why I did. So some specific things that I want to get into a little bit as to like what I got from it. I'm not going to go through every little thing, but I have like, I don't even have that many notes, but I've got like some notes here of things, reminders for myself. That's why I have them on my phone that I want to look at more. Some of them were just like affirming, yes, this is what anxiety is, and if I give it that definition, that means this or that means this thing. It just helps me like process that label, I guess, more and what I'm feeling, and be like, oh, anxiety means something. It means this. It means, like in this case, a reminder is like, oh, it's the feeling that I'm missing something. And I've always attached, like, not always, but I mean, I realize my FOMO, like my fear of missing out and my anxiety are very attached, and whatever else, that there's something better out there, right? That you're not finished something, feeling disconnection, all those things. Talk about anxiety being a response to stimuli, feeling unsafe and reacting. So in that case, you can assess the stimuli if you can take a second and like pause, and then assess if there's actually any real potential danger, react accordingly. Little reminders like that. I mean, some things like, okay, here's the biggest one that I can think of right now without even going down this whole list, is meditation. This is one of the times where I feel like Sarah got preachy, but it's really only one line that was like really preachy, and it was, meditation is non-negotiable. Like, if you have anxiety, meditation is non-negotiable. So I've tried meditating in the past. Like a year or so ago I tried. I thought I knew what meditation was, and I was like, just try to clear your mind and not think of anything, and it doesn't work. The amazing thing that I love more than anything about this, and what Sarah's done in this book, is she has made it okay to suck at meditating. And I won't say she made it okay. I just mean, like, again, because I'm in the right place, in the right frame of mind, and open to hearing things, because sometimes there's things in here people have said before, that I've heard before, that I just wasn't ready to hear or like apply to my life. And meditation wasn't something I thought of again since I like failed miserably at it before. And she just talks about like, hey, like meditation isn't just one thing, first of all. And like, especially as an anxious person and you're always thinking and always going, like it's not going to be just clear. You're not going to reach that right away. Like it's this incredibly uphill battle. And she just talks about like, I suck at meditating and I suck twice a day. Like I meditate twice a day is what she was saying. And it sucks every time. And it's not like, it's really not, I'm not doing it right or whatever. But I mean, that's the thing, is that is doing it right, is being open to the fact that like, your mind's going to wander. Just try to bring it back. Bring it back to what? Like, I don't know. I never tried a mantra before this. I just tried to be completely clear, and it doesn't work for me. So having, like, a little mantra, like mine's like 3 words, having that to come to either repeating it, like I was kind of saying one word between breaths kind of thing, or like with an exhale saying a word or whatever, that gives me something to focus on. Like, I think that, for me, as a really anxious person whose mind just goes and goes and goes and can't stop, really, then having something like, oh, I'm focusing on a word, I'm focusing on a word, I'm focusing on a word, I'm focusing on this sentence, and like, obviously that sentence is chosen purposefully to like reaffirm that everything's okay, like, so it's, I mean, that's a whole other thing, that the words you use can have their own power with their meaning and stuff too, and saying them repeatedly. But I don't know, the first time I tried it, I probably only tried meditating like 4 times in the past month and a half, and I got to that part in the book pretty early, and so it's been I haven't been doing it even every week, let alone every day, right? But it's on my mind. I need to make time to keep doing it because the very first time I did, I just like at first I had to like really loudly just like say these words in my mind, and then my breaths were loud, and it was so focused, and then it just like something it just like sunk, and it was like easy, and like it's still it's still taking work to get to where I want to be with meditation. Maybe that's not something for you anyway, right? But that was the biggest thing with this book that I was like, it kind of gave me confidence or reassurance or just like it was just like, hey, you could try meditating again. It was like, yes I could, you're right. Especially so like strongly worded, like meditation is non-negotiable. I'm like, okay, settle down, Sarah, but I'll give it a shot, and I did, and I think it is very useful. Like I really do, and part of that is because it also talks about like, hey, like I usually don't have a problem sleeping, but I've talked about this before in other videos with my anxiety. Is what I do have a problem with is wanting to sleep. Once I decide I'm going to sleep, I fall asleep pretty quickly. So I'm not kind of like, oh, I'm so anxious or whatever that I'm always overanalyzing everything while I'm trying to sleep. My brain just keeps me up. It doesn't. Not in that traditional sense. What happens is that I don't want to go to sleep because there's a lot of reasons. Like, but I mean, like, I don't want to go to sleep. Going to like once you put down the phone or put down the book, but especially like the phone for me is a huge struggle. Once I put that down, I am alone. Like for that little space of like I'm alone, and I get anxious that I might not be able to sleep, even though I'm pretty much always going to be able to sleep. Like it's very rare that that I'm not able to fall asleep right away. But there's anxiety that I won't be able to sleep, and that little space in there is just enough to keep me awake and to stay awake and to stay awake and to stay awake. So one thing that meditation does, or just giving yourself quiet time throughout the day, if like I'm so scared sometimes of being alone with my thoughts. Like I have podcasts going on while I do dishes or chores or whatever, right? While I'm cooking, watching something while I'm eating. Like I'm just like to always be stimulated. Part of that is because I just don't want to be alone with myself and my thoughts sometimes. Too much distraction. So that's something that if you give yourself quiet time, whether it's meditation or something else, a couple times maybe throughout the day, once you get to the evening, maybe it's easier to go to bed. But it's like got to be intentional. I think for me, purposeful, intentional quiet time would definitely help. So that's something that kind of I was able to reflect on as well. And there's some things that are just so simple, right? But again, I was in the right space. I needed to hear it, and I got it. And one thing that I use that helps me is just this notion of like, what is the problem? Like, slow down. Like, for some reason, whenever I was anxious before, I just couldn't slow down. It was like, yes, I know I'm anxious and I'm going to keep going. Or I didn't realize I was having an anxious moment, and now I'm so hyper aware of my anxiety that I actually can realize, like, okay, hold on. Like, what's the problem? Just like asking myself that, like, what's the problem? What is it? Like, what really is the problem that's happening right now? You're moving a mile a minute. You're distressed. You're feeling really not in a safe place right now. Like, again, reacting to stimuli or whatever, and it's like, wait, slow, just 1 second. What is it? I'm just forcing myself to like think, what is the problem? Sometimes I realize there is no problem right now. I'm thinking about something so far in the future, and it's a potential that I don't need to do that and be like, hey, right now I'm okay. Right now everything is okay. I'm not on the verge of like anything horrible, so it's okay. Again, putting that, it was really easy to put that into practice. Generally, like since I kind of just had that introduced to me again, like just what is the problem? Like asking myself that. Every worry about the future is exaggerated was another really bold line that Sarah had there. So obviously being present is very, very important. There's so many like cliches and stuff that people say, and without the context of why that's important to you, that's all they do. That's all they just stay as cliches, right? So like be present, like don't take life for granted, seize the day, like all that stuff. But I'm like, being present is really important for me in my anxiety and not thinking so far ahead. Like, I mean, Sarah also talks about like the advantages to anxiety and like knowing to like how to harness that into positivity and into good things. And that's a thing for me too, is like, yeah, I realize that my anxiety makes me a great organized person. Like I can foresee so many potential outcomes, and I can plan for them, and I plan well for them, and like I can just see a huge scope of things, and I can narrow down into details and like figure stuff out. Obviously, that has its drawbacks, and that's the thing is that like looking so far ahead all the time, like I'm thinking about too many things that might not ever happen or whatever, and if I start to get worried about them or concerned about them, that's not good. So like just saying to someone, yeah, be present. You know, you got to be present. You got to be peaceful. Like I don't know, but with the context of being like, yes, I need to stay in the present. I need to force myself into situations where I'm present. That's really useful for me to like manage my anxiety and just chill and just be calmer in general. This is one thing too. A lot of it's just about letting go of certain things, and another thing was instead of asking yourself, "Does this make me happy?" Is asking, "Does this contribute to my wholeness?" And some of this sounds really hokey and whatever else, right? But like I said, I was in the right place to read this stuff and kind of get it, I guess, and apply it to me. So I mean, the way it's worded sounds a little bit hokey, but I mean, I think that's an important thing for me too. Is like I don't care about being happy as much. I've never been like the whole ignorance is bliss thing, and I'd rather be, you know, aware of everything and miserable. I'd rather be smart and miserable than ignorant and blissful. However, that's why it was easy for me to latch onto that. Like, does this make me happy? Like, I never really had that to begin with. Like, what makes me happy right now? But does this contribute to my wholeness? Which is just another way of saying, like, in some things, like, is this contributing to my long term? Because happiness is pretty fleeting in that sense of like, oh, I'm so happy right now. Well, that's like 30 seconds, and then you kind of slide back into regular life. So doing something that makes me happy now versus something that will make me happy or whatever, it's kind of like seeing it that way. Does it contribute to my wholeness? Like, I don't know, growth mindset is something I've always really been about and very formally, eventually as well. So like that's part of growth mindset is going through those negative things, right? Just like going through trials and conflicts and stuff, and being positive about it. Because sometimes you go through stuff and then later on you're like, oh yeah, I'm glad I went through that. That really helped me as a person. Whereas in advance you could say, wait, is this contributing to my wholeness? Because then I can feel less anxious now, right? So that was just, you know, some of these are just really quick little lines, and obviously there's more context by reading the book that would probably help you, or it would hit you differently. Another one is just choosing discomfort over resentment. So for some people, you know, their discomfort of maybe social situations would lead them to not participating. But then you could have resentment over like with yourself about like it can sometimes be a cycle, right? Like a never-ending negative cycle of just like, well, I'm really anxious right now and I don't want to go out and do that thing that I said I would do or whatever, or that I think would benefit me. So you don't do it, and then you start thinking about how that you didn't do that thing, and you're kicking yourself because you didn't do the thing you should have done. And just that one simple line is just a nice reminder of like, choose a little discomfort over resentment, because the resentment like lasts so much longer and feeds this cycle. Whereas if you can be uncomfortable a bit and try to stretch yourself and push your limits with some things, as long as you have like an escape plan, maybe, if whatever, just like it's just it's a good reminder. This is a really simple one. You can't be anxious and present. And just little things were just clicking for me all the time when I read something. Like, yeah, like these are just little throwaway lines for some people or whatever, but it's a simple line that reminds me, like, yeah, I can't be anxious and be present. So if I'm anxious right now, I need to force myself to be present. I'm thinking of the future. The future is probably exaggerated. The concern there is probably exaggerated. So I just need to bring myself back in. And again, something that when I was talking to a counselor like a year and a half ago or whenever it was about me being really task oriented and like trying to like settle into the present and be enjoying my experience in the moment and stuff. That's something again that I'm applying more. And so it's just like, if I'm exaggerating the future, like let's bring it back down to right now. What is the problem? Is there a problem? Okay, there's no problem. Let's just chill. Let's just do whatever we're gonna do and have a good time. Because if I'm anxious, that means I'm not present. So the solution is to be present, and thus I cannot be anxious. So, that's what I was saying, was that like some of these things are things you should do, like I could do in the moment, of like, crap, I'm anxious right now, what can I do? But a lot of it is managing so you don't even get to that point. Like, if I go from here to here every time, like, really quick, whereas someone else would just be like, oh, yeah, like this scenario just brings me up to here. But for me, maybe it's always going to be like this. Well, I need to bring myself down here to begin with. So, like, if I'm always... this is dumb. If I'm always at a 5 all the time, like, my default is at a 5, and it takes me... Maybe I go up 4 points when I hit a certain scenario, just like, oh, what the heck, what's going on? Let's do something about it. I don't understand. What can we possibly think about right now? Like, maybe I'll jump to the 4 right away every time. So what I need to do, because I can't foresee that scenario, is instead of being at a 5 all the time, I need to try to bring myself down to like a 3 or something, because then that jump won't go to 9, that jump will go to 7. More manageable, right? And that's just with like things I could do like every day. So just thinking of like, yeah, being in the present more every day. So just like mindfulness activities, whether it's meditation or just like art is the coping mechanism for me. Like creating art sometimes forces me into the present where I'm not thinking about anything else. Biking has been a huge thing for that too. Yeah, that's a quick thing. I guess the last thing, because I don't want to get into every single thing, is like, I don't know can be exciting and not scary. Maybe we'll back off the fact that it could be exciting a little bit, because that's really difficult. But just like, I don't know doesn't have to be scary, which has been really difficult because, I don't know. It's when it comes to like your plans or what I'm doing later or what are we going to do or what I don't know. I need to stop saying that. It's like my go-to like filler phrase, and I hate that. Because I do know, and I'm going to tell you right now. I feel like that is usually scary for me, and people that are close to me know that when I don't have the knowledge of what the future is, I can't control that, and therefore I get anxious because I'm like, what's happening again? What are we doing? So again, it's more of just like reframing and being like, I don't know is going to be okay. Like things are going to work out. Obviously, this is very situational because some things you obviously need to do to prepare, and like for me, over planning or preparing or whatever, like organizing, that's what makes me less anxious because I know what's going to happen. But also, you don't know anything. Life is going to get in the way and mess things up and whatever. So it's better to just realize that like, I don't know doesn't have to be scary when someone says they don't know. Just like, I just need to think, is this actually a problem they don't know right now? It's not a problem? Okay, fine. It doesn't matter. Like, it might take 2 minutes to figure out later. Yes, it can be figured out now. I don't know. There's so much, like, I can't even get into everything, and like, it's really difficult to actually take everything apart as to like, it hit me a certain way. There's a lot of things in here that I'm sure would affect someone else differently that I glossed right over that didn't do anything for me at all. And some people might have experiences similar to Sarah's here, or conditions or whatever that I don't relate to. I just think it was a really great read. Like again, it was an easy read. It just felt good reading it, and it helped me out a bunch. Like there's so many things I took out of there. It doesn't make me want to go read like, oh, I'm just into self-help books now. Like, oh, that's great. No, it's like this one just happened to be the right one for me right now, and I'm still working with it, and I don't feel the need to be like, yeah, self-help, let's go. I need that's what I need right now, and let's just keep trucking along with that. Not at all. This specific book has been useful. That's all I can say. It's been very useful for me. So, there's so many more branches of that we can go through. Again, though, I would definitely recommend it. Author is Sarah Wilson. She's written one other book on quitting sugar, which is a whole other thing. First, We Make the Beast Beautiful. A lot of stuff in here about acceptance, obviously, of self, and just things about like retraining your mind to think about things in a different way. And again, so much of this, this is probably worth another read another time later for me. I don't know when that would happen, but I mean, like, so many things that just got said just clicked immediately. It wasn't like, what does that mean? How does that work? And there's a lot of things that maybe would click on a different time. That's why it's worth a reread probably. But just the way that things are, some of it is just so plain. It's just very easy to understand and to like put that specific scenario or that process to put it on yourself or to apply it to your life. I just found the way that it's presented, it's just easy. This is a stupid review. I feel like I'm not doing it justice, and I feel like, I don't know, like I kind of went through a couple things that for me were just like really useful, but again, like I've never reviewed a self-help book because I've never read one. I've never like suggested one to friends or whatever else. It's just it's so hard to talk about. It's good. It's a good read for people with anxiety. I think that's where I'm gonna leave that.